All right, so what I've got here, I've got some orders on my test database here, and I'll walk through what we're covering. And again, if you have questions, put those in the chat, and we'll try to get those questions answered towards the end. One of the first things when we talk about cancellation, are we canceling a line on a PO, or are we canceling the entire order? So we're going to talk about both of those first. I'm going to make an assumption here that most people on here know how to do a change order in Oasis. That's actually another topic for a webinar, is going over the order side of things. But since we're talking about cancellations, I'm actually going to do a change order to cancel a line. So the first order I have up here, make sure everybody can see my screen. If you can't, be sure and say that in the chat if you can't see my order screen. Okay, so what I've got up here is just a typical order, test order in my system, and I have 3 line items on here from this manufacturer. And maybe an example is the customer has called and we need to cancel a line on this order. And the way you do that is going to be the same process that you would do a change order. I'm not canceling the entire order. I'm only canceling one line on this order. So I start the change process in order to cancel a line, and I'll go up to action and make changes. You know, most of you probably have done that, and that starts the change process. So you can make changes, and when you click on that, this is the same process that you would do to add a line or to change an item, add quantities or change pricing or anything, any change that you make to an order. But in this case, I'm going to cancel a line. And the way you do that, again, go up to Tools, Change, start the change process. You'll get this yellow icon, and the yellow means I'm in a change order, but I haven't, we'll say, sent it anywhere, sent it to the factory, because it's still yellow. And it will turn another color besides yellow once that change has been processed, or once Oasis understands that you have sent this change to the factory, let's say. So I've got it in change mode. That's what the yellow triangle means. And I'm going to cancel this last line on here as an example. So in order to cancel a line on an order, I can go into my quantity section there, and I'm just zeroing it out. So I just type in 0, and once I tab off of it, notice it has put that in a message line right underneath it, put it in yellow. And when you've noticed when you do anything on a change order, whatever it is that you've changed, or what line it has affected, or cell field in that line has affected, will turn yellow. And so that's your indicator of your change. So I've zeroed out the quantity, it zeroed the release, and it put minus release, minus 100 in the release now column. So just keep that in mind. Your release column keeps a running total of what has been released to date. And then my release now, if I were doing a release off of a hold, my release now column is what am I releasing right at this moment. So once I zeroed out the quantity, then it zeroed the release and minus the release now column out. Put the word line canceled in there. So now I need to notify whoever, whether it's a factory, wherever it needs to go to complete this cancellation of the line. So I do a print and then start the process like I would be sending this off to a factory, let's say. So I might be doing it via send message with a PDF attachment to it, or whatever the case is. And I hit send, and it treats this just like a change order, except down in the body, you'll see the only line mentioned was the line that I canceled. So that line of 100 quantity now has a change, and it says now that that line is canceled, and it will type that out for you down below the bill of materials in the change notes section, changes for type. I, in this case, change the quantity from 100 to 0, and quantity released obviously to 0 as well. And then you would send that off. I'm just going to type in a known email address that I have loaded in the system, and then hit send, and it processes just like you sending any other order. The assumption is that you're sending this to the factory, letting the factory know that you're requesting this line to be canceled. And then, of course, the factory then would respond back, and you'd come back in here with whatever that response is. But to release or to cancel a line on an order, the way you do that is through a change order and zero out the quantity, print, send, email, whatever that process is. If you have any questions about that process, again, put them in the chat and we'll get to them as we go. Now, let's do one where this is another order, test order. And in this scenario, we're going to cancel the entire order, okay? And then we'll go on with some other options, other options, RMA, warranty, and how it affects things, affects the order as well. All right. I'm going to move on to canceling an order. In this scenario, we're going to cancel the entire order. So to cancel the entire order, we don't do the change process. In this case, we're going to go up to action at the top, and instead of doing changes, we're going to go down to where it says cancel order. And the assumption there is, or the reason for using it is, we're canceling all 3 lines on this order, or we're requesting a cancel, I should say. So I click cancel order, and it's going to pop open this window, and you'll see this on the RMA warranty process as well when we go over that. And all it's doing here is bringing up your bill of materials, and it's making sure that you want to cancel all the lines on here. So you have a select column over here that I'm just simply checking for all lines on this order to be canceled, and the system is going to want to know the reason, probably just like a factory is wanting to know the reason that you're canceling this order. So there is a reason tab that you can go to and type in your reason for canceling it. So I'll just say customer does not need any longer, whatever the case is. If I don't do that process, in other words, I'm going to delete this, and I go ahead and try to process the cancel order and send it off, once I hit print here, it's going to pop up a window that reminds me that I have to put in a reason anyway. So, and if you don't hit the reason tab, it's going to require you to go and put something in there regardless. So I'll just hit OK, and it takes me to the reason tab, and I type in my reason for canceling the order. And so I could put, we'll call it customer does not need, something like that. And if you have common used notes that you use for a canceled order and don't want to have to type those in every time, there is a clipboard on this reason section as well, and you'll see that over here to the right. You'll see the clipboard in a lot of places in the system, and it's basically a place to store notes that you commonly use and don't want to have to type in every time. So for this case, you can quickly go to, even if you type it in like I did here, and just highlight it all, hit the clipboard and put that note in here. That's what goes in the little drop-down menu, and then this note here is what's actually going to appear here. And you can add that to your clipboard list by clicking this Add button here. And the user checkbox means if it's checked, it means it's your note specifically. But if you want to let other people in the office use the note, you can simply uncheck it, and hit close, and now that note is saved. So if I go in here next time and I want to use one of those notes that I have put on the clipboard, you can now hit the drop down and click that, and it drops that now into your reason box without me having to type anything. So just keep that in mind, that you can create clipboard notes for commonly used notes in the system. All right, so I've given it a reason why I want to cancel this entire order. And from here, I just hit print to email it in this case. And notice the preview here. We want to make it clear to whoever we're sending this to. If we're sending this to the factory, we want to make it clear that we want to cancel this order. Now, way back there when I was working with factories about forms and the way forms looked and what information they wanted on these forms, and working with the agents out there, what they wanted to see on forms, one thing that came up in all of that was making sure that the word request was on there. They wanted to make sure that we had the word request on it, because you're requesting the order to be canceled, or in the RMA warranty process, you're also requesting a RMA or a warranty request as well. So anyway, on here, you'll notice that the word cancellation is at the top, and then as you go down through this, you'll see the words cancel everywhere, cancel, cancel, and then down on all the lines on here, they're all canceled, and the reason is at the bottom. So that's what a cancellation order request is. So I'll send that off to whoever that request is supposed to go to. In your email space there, type in whatever notes that you want to. And of course, it's already attached over here to the right in your attachments area. And now I'm ready to send it. So I just push send, and it will update some things here. Do I want to close this order out and close any accounting flags or anything that would trigger any accounting or needs to be invoiced, or an invoice reply applied to it, or anything like that? You can skip it or close the order, whichever one you want to do. Now, once that has been sent, let's say, it has cancel at the top and clearly shows that the order has been canceled. Anytime I pull it up, or it'll pull it up in a order list and show canceled as well in red. Now, we all know that a lot of times once you request a canceled order, sometimes the line has already shipped, or the factory says that it has already shipped. So what do? There's actually a couple ways to handle that. You can leave it canceled if you want to, and then when an invoice comes in, you can still apply an invoice to a canceled order if you want. But I'll say that probably most people will revert the cancellation so that the order goes back to the state that it was in prior to the cancellation, so they can continue their normal processes, processing orders, applying invoices, reconciliation, and all of that process downstream, you might say. So if you've done that, and again, it can stay in this state, but if you want to revert it back to the state that it was in prior to cancellation, you open it up, and there's an action up here at the top where we've been already, and there's an option at the bottom that says revert cancellation. And it's basically going backwards from what we did with the cancellation process. So we restore it. I just simply check those boxes again, and go through that same process, print it, whether I send something or not, don't have to. Print it, wants the reason for it, and you can type in whatever it is you want to, especially if you're not sending this to the factory since it's already been shipped. You can actually type in whatever is needed there if you're not wanting to send anything to the factory. And again, most groups wouldn't in that reason or in that situation. So I'm going to print it, and I may send it or not. In this case, I'm just going to go through that process of sending. And it's a change 2 because I processed a change 1, canceling it already, and it's recognizing that something else has happened to the order, so it identifies it as change 2. So now you can see that the order has been restored back to the state that it was in prior to me doing that cancel on it. The only thing that has changed is now I've got in the header area up here, it's recorded that there has been 2 changes, you might say, on this order. So a cancellation has been processed, and then a revert cancellation has been processed. So immediately when you see the red, you know that there's something has happened to this order. Now, if you want to know what's happened or see what's happened with that process when you see the red, you can always go to your attachments tab, because it records everything that has happened with this PO, and you'll see all of that cancellation and revert cancellation process in here. So where it says internal change, that's actually the cancellation document PDF. You want to see it, you can always double click on it and it'll open up and show you the order before the cancellation, what it looked like, and then you can see the cancel order. Double click on that, and there's your cancellation request that we sent off to the factory. And then the change 2 was the restoration of it, revert cancellation, you might say. So we reverted that back. You'll see all the lines on there, and it reverted it back to the state that it was in prior to the cancellation. So just remember that your attachments tab records everything that's happened to this order. Now, so that's how you cancel the entire order. And then if you want to, if it's been shipped anyway and you want to restore it back to where it was, so you can treat it like any other order, apply invoices and do your reconciliation, that process, then most people will revert the cancellation so they can have it look like regular order, you might say, in the system. All right. So again, it records a copy of everything that's happened to it. All right, now I'll minimize this one. We can come back to it if there's questions about it at the end. Okay, the next thing would be an RMA and warranty request. Both are handled the same way. They work through the same process. It's just wording that you put in there, reason you might say that you're asking for this RMA. So I'm going to open this order up so we can process an RMA or warranty request on a line or a number of quantities of a line. So to do an RMA or warranty request, same thing. I go up to action, and there's a option down here that says RMA request. Okay. All right. So to process an RMA or warranty request, it wants to know, it lists all the lines from the PO on here, and it wants to know, okay, which line or lines and how many. So it gives you that option. So in this scenario, I'm going to say, okay, that line, that type A line, CFR 6V, and I want to return or do an RMA, let's say, on 2 of those items. Maybe they were shipped and they were broken, or something happened to them that we want to return, or we're requesting a return on 2, or maybe it's fulfill a warranty or whatever the case is. So I select only that line, or I could do multiple lines, and whatever the quantity is that I'm returning, that's what you put in the quantity column. Again, if I hit print here, it's going to ask me, you need to put a reason in here. So again, if I hit print, I'll get that same pop-up, and it carries me to the reason tab to put in my reason for requesting an RMA or warranty. So you'll type in any information here for a RMA or warranty, however you want to put that in here. That's what shows up in the notes. Let me just type in need RMA or warranty. Again, you put in there whatever your wording is, and you can create, again, clipboard for that process, RMA process as well if you want to, but it has to have a reason for the return. So I've selected that line, entered in a quantity of 2. Now I'm ready to process the RMA or warranty request. So I hit print, and it brings me to that same screen. And this is RMA request, is what it says on the document. All the information on here, the line, the quantity of 2, CFR 6V that I'm returning, and the price on that was $20. Again, that's from the order, comes over from the order. And there's my return notes, whatever I've told the factory that needs to happen, or my reason for returning it. And since this is a printed document, it has a factory could use this to, we'll say, print it or PDF or whatever the case is, and type in or write in a name. It's their area to respond back if they want to use this form to turn around and send this back to you. So you could have a factory send this form back to you with this information filled in and instructions down here that they may have put in there. Now, there are a few factories out there that have a automated process for this, and we're doing a lot more work with various factories on this whole RMA process to make it more automated, if you will. So that just know that that's out there. If you're not seeing that with any factory, just know that you might see that in the future with some of your factories, to where this process will be a lot more automated. But that's what the form looks like. Make sure everything looks correct, where it's going, who the customer is. And again, there's a place for them to respond, or they may simply send you an email response to it as well. But that is what the form looks like. You'll type in whatever message that you want, and again, whoever you're sending it to, their email address, and hit send, and away it goes. Now, since I'm sending this off, notice it's still yellow, the triangle up here, meaning it hasn't been sent to the factory yet. It's waiting on me to answer this question. It's basically saying, okay, I'm going to send this off to the factory, but it wants to know to create a replacement PO for these 2 items in this case. And if you do want that, then you can say yes, and I'll show you what it creates as far as a replacement PO at the same time here. Or if I don't, if it's just a return of 2 or whatever, then you can say no, and it will complete the process and send it on to the factory. So in this scenario, I'm going to say yes, I want to create a replacement PO as well after you send this off to the factory. So I'll say yes, and it starts that process as this release or hold, just like I was creating a new order. And it pops up notes just like it does on a regular order. But now notice I'm going to move this replacement PO. We'll talk about it in just a second. But the order now that I have created this RMA on now shows me that I have an RMA applied or created an RMA on this order. And you know that by looking at the line right underneath the line that we did the RMA on. You'll see a link now to that, basically to that document, you might say. So it says that there's been an RMA on this line to CFR 6Vs on January 30th, has been processed and sent. So that's your indicator at the line level here that there's been an RMA processed on that line or type A, you might say. If you want to see that in your attachments tab, again, you'll see everything that's happened to this PO. You'll see the internal change line there. That's the order, how it looked prior to me doing an RMA. And then you'll actually have a copy, a PDF copy of the RMA itself, what we just looked at, that got sent to the factory, you might say. And then, of course, a copy of the email as well. All right, so that's what happens to the PO once an RMA has been processed. Now, since I selected to create a replacement PO, then it popped up this screen, another order screen, and notice it's yellow, just letting me know, hey, you haven't completed this yet and sent it off to the factory. So it's still yellow. And it's for a replacement PO on that original order. Now I'm going to move this down here so you can see that order is behind it. And notice the PO number on that order was 665544. And now, since I asked it to create a replacement PO, it automatically popped in that original PO number and did a -REPL for me automatically. Now, I can change that if I want to, but it does that by default since I ask it to create a replacement PO. Now, any other information on the general tab of the order, you can put. It's still linked to the original quote that this was created from, and the order that it was replacement PO was created from as well. So that's on here. I go to my items tab and I'll see that one item, order again, those two items. So it drops the quantity in there too, puts the part number in there, and the price is assuming that the price is still the same, commission still the same on that replacement PO. And from here, I treat this just like another order in the system, make sure my ship to is accurate or what I want it to be. Could have changed. You can also add any notes that you want. It automatically puts in the note to the factory, and down at the bottom below your bill of materials, it'll say replacement PO for original PO and gives that PO number there. So if you're sending this, emailing this to the factory, they'll know what order it was related to. Again, any internal notes that nobody sees but you or your group can be added on here so that if anybody else down the road opens this PO up, those notes will pop up as well. That works on all POs, but anything special related to this replacement PO, you can certainly add those notes in here. All right, so that is a replacement PO. And again, if I didn't want a replacement PO, then I would, on that screen, I would have hit no, and it would have proceeded with adjusting the original RMA just like this, and noted that it had an RMA applied to it. All right, same thing again with the warranty request, and put your reason in there, or let the factory know that this is a warranty request, and you continue to process it just like we did there. As far as invoicing goes, nothing has changed on the invoicing side. Even if you cancel the order, we kind of went over that. It doesn't change your ability to apply an invoice. It doesn't change anything to change any shipping information. That can all still be applied as well. And then, of course, your reconciliation side. So that's how all of those different processes, canceling a line, canceling the entire order, processing an RMA, warranty request, and then doing a replacement PO. We have quite a bit of time here. I can cover anything related to any of this, or go back, talk about change orders. If anybody has a question or wants to see anything specific to this, or go over something again, change order process, be glad to touch on any of those processes. But that's how those processes work by design. You may have, there may be groups out there that have maybe a slightly different process, but that's how the system was designed, so that you account for RMAs and any lines that have been canceled or entire orders that have been canceled.
So we do have a couple of questions that just came in.
Okay.
The first one is, what is the difference with a resale order?
Okay, resale, you have to remember that this is just a regular commissioned order, and generally we talk about this on doing a resale section. There's really not a difference if you're on the resale side for all of those who may or may not do buy, sell, or resale. Basically, in that scenario, you as a customer and a agent are buying something from a factory to resell. So if there is a RMA or cancel to be processed, it works the same way. It's just that you are the customer in that scenario and the agent, and you apply it to the vendor order. So once you create a resale order, and I'm not sure I have much to work with here for a vendor PO, but when you open up a vendor PO, it should have yellow, kind of a yellow background here, and those same tools should be there. So there really shouldn't be any difference in a RMA or cancel order. All of those tools should be there. It's just that you're doing it as a customer and an agent and creating a canceled order to send off to the factory, or you're doing an RMA. It's just that you're the customer in that scenario. Okay, next one.
So the next question says, is it the same for buy-sell orders when entering an RMA?
Should be. We'll probably set up another section for resale and go through that process of applying it to a vendor PO, but it's the same, should be the same process. Again, you're the customer as well as the agent when you're applying it to a vendor PO. Okay.
Okay, so the next question is, when you enter RMA, does it update commission reporting?
Does it update commission reporting? In most cases, yes, but I think you have to apply the response back to the RMA. You have to do a response back, and let me see if I can pull up RMA response. And this varies because lots of things can happen. Again, when I was working with the factories on this, the RMA is a request, return materials authorization, but it's basically a request, and that's what you see on the printed document. It could be that they give you a full return, replace it, charge you an inventory restock, or whatever the case is. Lots of things could happen. It could be field scrap, could be lots of different things. But whatever that response is, you'll have to apply it to that PO in order to change most of the reporting that affects what commission you're expecting to receive. So I could get a response back from the factory and put in the RMA that they sent me back, maybe an invoice number related to it. Is there an expiration when that had to be returned, or whatever the case is? And then you'll get to this one. Since I don't have an RMA on it, it would have that line on here, part number and commission. Was it returned? Was it replaced? Is there a charge? Whatever it is, but you'll need to apply that response, we'll call it, back to the order so that it changes. You'll notice on that order that it didn't change any quantities or commission rates or anything. It just, that's not the one that we applied that to. So let me get that open back up. There's our original line. So notice it has the RMA and tells you what your requested RMA on 2 of those items, but it didn't change anything because I haven't processed a response. So if it was just they authorized me to return those 2 items, so until I do that response, it doesn't change the quantity on that line until I process the response side. And again, that response could vary greatly. It could be that they turned down the response period or rejected the request at all, or again, could be lots of different things. They could charge you a restock charge, or again, lots of different things could happen to it, but nothing will change on the order as far as reporting until a response has been applied.
It looks like that is all the questions we have right now. So if anyone else has any last minute questions, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat.
Okay. This was not a full hour session, but we didn't know exactly how many questions we would get about that whole process. But what I went through was the default, the way it was set up, the way to process canceling a line, canceling an entire order, reverting it, and doing the RMA request, and even a replacement PO. If you have, we'll say too, if you have specific things like the pick ticket canceling that, like this, let us know on there so we may do one of these sessions just on resale and warehouse picks, that type thing, so we can cover that specifically. And there are probably a lot of people on this session that don't do resale at all, so certainly don't want to confuse anybody between resale and commission orders. But that's good feedback. If one person doesn't understand it or needs to go over how to do it exactly, then that's something that we need to cover. So any more feedback like that, please keep it coming. Any other questions? If aren't any more questions, we'll conclude this session and look for another one based on your feedback in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.